Hey guys, Kyle with Dirt Bike Channel here, and today we're going to be replacing our counter shaft seal on our dirt bike. That's the shaft that's up here on your front sprocket, and just so happen to have a counter shaft seal kit, and we're going to replace this thing today. That's what's coming up next on Dirt Bike Channel. So I thought I'd show you kind of what's in the box for at least for a KTM counter shaft seal kit. This is what you get in the box. You get your spacer sleeve, you get the seal, the actual seal, you get another O-ring that's going to go on the shaft, and then you get another snap ring a new snap ring for your sprocket. So that's what you get in the kit. These things are not overly expensive. I think I paid right around 15 bucks for that. And then I have some other tools here to kind of show you what we're doing. The interesting thing is my counter shaft seal wasn't leaking until I pulled my sprocket off and replaced the sprocket, which I think is semi-typical. If you're going to mess around with your sprocket, you might end up making your counter shaft seal leak, and that's exactly what happened in this case. So probably should have done the counter shaft seal as soon as I did the sprocket, but I wanted to check and see if it was going to leak, and sure enough, on the first ride out it did. So on this application, what are some of the tools I'm going to need to pull this off? Well, I've got snap ring pliers here because this one has a snap ring, my sprocket. Some of you will have a socket that you will use to take that sprocket off. I've also got a seal puller here. This will make it a lot easier to pull, to get in and grab and pull this seal out of the bike, which you'll see in a moment. And then about the only other tool I have is just something, you know, a breaker bar to take my tire off, because you got to loosen your chain to get, you know, you got to be able to get the chain kind of up out of the way. And so the only way to do that is pull your rear tire so that your chain can give you enough room to you know, just to work with here. So those are the tools that we need, and we're gonna go ahead and knock this out. Okay, so first things first, we got to pull our chain guard off. Short socket on the rear. Ratchet, come on baby. There we go. Okay, I'm gonna get a little screwdriver to grab this snap ring and pull it off, because I'm having a hard time getting it to come off with just my snap ring pliers. There we go. That should do it. And off. And I got it came with a new snap ring there too, so I'm not too worried about that one. So then we'll just kind of bunch our chain up here and get some free play in the back. Come on, man. Just move our chain kind of out of the way like that. And now we can pull off our sprocket. We'll clean this thing up. But the way that you can tell if you've got a leak is you end up kind of getting a star pattern on your sprocket of oil, and you'll just kind of see a bunch of gunk built up. So it won't be difficult for you to tell if you've got a counter shaft seal issue. Then we're just going to kind of pick this thing apart. So we'll pull this spacer out. This is where your seal, here's the seal, and this is where that seal rides, is right on this thing. So we'll pull that out. There's also an O-ring right back in here that's on the actual counter shaft. So we'll be mindful of that when we're putting this back together. Now this seal can be kind of tricky to pull out because it's kind of pressed in there. So if you don't have one of these seal pullers, it can be kind of hard. You kind of have to dig it out with screwdrivers and things. I like having the counter shaft or a seal puller like this, because look at this. This thing comes out so easily with that tool. And these tools aren't expensive, but if you don't have that tool, it can be kind of a bear sometimes to get this out without kind of damaging the case of your, you know, the case here that surrounds your counter shaft seal. So I do suggest getting one of these, you know, counter shaft seal pullers. I showed a shot of that earlier, but that made that so easy to do. Pull that thing out. And then here is our O-ring, as you can see, that's on the actual counter shaft. So we'll go ahead and put that stuff together in the opposite order, but I'm gonna clean this stuff up a bit before I put all this back together. Had some grime here from this counter shaft leaking on that last ride, so I just wanna kind of clean this stuff up before I get too crazy. Make sure I don't get a bunch of garbage in here. It's always good to have some shop towels kicking around. I kind of like these paper towels. They're nice to use. And this is just contact cleaner. You know, nothing too fancy here. It's technically electrical contact cleaner, but I like it because it doesn't leave any residue, and it's not like too overly harsh. It's not like brake cleaner or something where you can't get it on your clothes or on you, or you know, it'll deteriorate parts. So I kind of like to use it. A little bit of a degreaser in it, and it doesn't leave a residue. Okay, once you're satisfied that you've got everything cleaned up as much as you need, we're going to go ahead and reassemble this thing. So we'll put our O-ring back down here on the shaft, push that all the way down, make sure that's good there. And the next thing I'm going to need is my counter shaft seal. That will go on like this, the actual seal. And this kind of has to be pushed, you know, pressed in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a socket, and this is actually the same socket that I used to take off my rear tire. I'm going to use this like a real lightweight ball peen hammer and just sort of tap that in around the edges, as you can see. And I want it to go in evenly. I don't want to put any you know, weird kinks in this or any pressure on spots and bend this, you know. So you gotta be careful here as you're doing this, that you do it evenly. And you'll kind of feel it when it, and you watch. Okay, so I'm a little bit too much on the top. I'm going to work on the bottom now. Catch that bottom up. So we're ready to put in the last piece, and you have to make sure which way you're doing this. This piece has a groove here. I'm going to clean this out. It's got a groove on this side. A groove here where it rides on that little bushing back in there. I mean the O-ring that we put in. So I'm just going to make sure that this is nice and clean. Clean that thing up just a tad. Make sure there's no little bits of dirt on that. Okay, looks like we're good there. And then this, again, the flat side is out. The side that's got the little notch goes down inside like this. And there we go. So I was a little bit of an overachiever here, and I've got my seal a little bit too deep. Ideally, you want this to be just flush or just barely beyond flush with the case. And I went a little bit too far on this one, which might mean that this will just leak. So I hope that isn't the case, and I hope it doesn't decide to just leak on me. Using this socket here to kind of push that on so I can get it deep enough to get it onto the snap ring. But I may, you know what, it might be fine. Ideally, I wouldn't have I tapped it just a little bit too much, but this may be fine. Anyway, just be careful of how deep you're putting that thing on. Need to get this just on enough so we can get that snap ring in there. Now, when you guys take yours apart, some of you are going to have a ton of oil just leaking out when you pull this all out. The reason why I didn't have any oil leaking out is because I'm just in the middle of a gear oil change. So I actually dumped all the oil out of the bike. You don't have to do that. Some will leak out, so just kind of have a rag here. You can also kind of tip the bike up. This bike is on a standing straight up, but if you tip the bike a little bit over that way, in fact, if you just kind of lay it on its side, then you can do this without losing a bunch of oil. The reason why I didn't lose oil is because there wasn't oil in the bike on this particular one. So we're just using snap ring pliers here to put this ring back on, our new snap ring. See if we can get this. It's awkward with the angles when you've got a lights and camera right in your grill on this. So we'll see if we can pop this thing back enough to get that snap ring to go in the seat. Almost there. There we go. I think it's seated down. One of the things I like to do is just kind of inspect this with a little screwdriver and look real close and see if it is all the way down. And it looks like it is. The snap ring is seated completely. And the pressure of this, of your, your sprocket and your snap ring, holding that back in place and pushing that all the way back in, that's what's really going to make that seal for you. And I think I'm going to be okay on this one. I don't think it's going to leak. But if you do it right the first time and don't go quite so deep on that seal when you're putting that in, just have it be barely under flush. I think I went about a millimeter, maybe a millimeter and a half deeper than I needed to on that. So I'm just gonna have to watch it. Hey, if this thing leaks, it's because I put that in too deep. Well, that's pretty much it, guys. Those are the basics of swapping out a, replacing a countershaft seal on a bike. This is obviously a KTM 300, but those same principles are going to apply on a lot of different bikes. Your application obviously may vary somewhat, but that gives you an idea. It's not difficult to do. The part isn't super expensive. I mean, that whole kit was about $15, I think. I'll have to check that, but that's what my memory says, is it was about that. So not something that you need to send over to a shop to do. And the cool thing is, the more things that you can learn to do by yourself, the more confident you're going to get as you start turning wrenches on your bike. And you can save money. You can save a bunch of money by being able to work on these things yourself. And it just gives you a lot of confidence that you know what's going on with your bike, you know how to fix it, you know how to maintain it. And so this is a good little project for guys to do.